Hello and welcome back to Open 2.0. I'm your host Alyssa Coleman and I hope you all are staying safe and healthy during this time. Recently we learned about special initiatives coming to the BronxNet, and today two special guests, Principal Luis Torres of CS55 and Timothy Coleman, the Family Leadership Coordinator of District 7, are joining us to talk more about the Bronx Edulution. The learning will be televised. Welcome to the show, Principal Luis Torres and Timothy Coleman. So to start off, my first question is for Principal Torres. Can you talk about being a principal and about CS55?
Being a principal has been very challenging for me because not only am I a principal, but I've taken on the role of a community leader. And as a community leader, I try to bring all the resources necessary to make my school a true community school. For a lot of our families, education is a fifth priority. Food, shelter, safety, and health come first. And as a school principal, I want to address all those needs before we actually focus on literacy and math. So our school has a clinic in it through Montefiore. It's a full service clinic with a nurse, dentist, psychologist, ophthalmologist on staff working to support the community. We have a farm upstairs in the building that's supported by the Green Bronx machine, Stephen Ritz, where we grow our own vegetables, cook our own food. And our latest initiative is to work with Windows of Hip Hop. We were working on designing a music studio as well as working on redesigning our school around the theme of hip hop. So it's a very interesting school and it's an exciting place to work in.
So, Mr. Coleman, can you talk to us about being a family leadership coordinator of District 7 and what that entails and what communities you work with?
The basic things that you would see on paper are that I deal with PA, PTA elections. I support school leadership teams around the district. And then I also support our district leadership team. We have 24 schools. We represent just under 17,000 families. And in my position, the additional things to my position, um, I'm lucky because I have a lot of trust with my superintendent, Superintendent Rafael Alvarez. And so I'm able to be amongst the teams as new funding streams come into the district. So with My Brother's Keeper, we were able to formulate a really cool summer program for our families where we gave them yoga. We built a community garden in one of the parking spaces in the back lot of the district office that the parents now they take care of, at least prior to this pandemic. They take care of it and they do all of the distribution of the fresh vegetables. We do cooking classes with those fresh vegetables to teach them how to use it. We are really lucky to have a very diverse group of parents in our community. Unlike Principal Torres, I don't really have that much exposure to the students. My main focus is really like community liaison partnerships and making sure we take the greatness that is in our parents and we develop workshops and classes and things for them so that they can see dreams come true that maybe for whatever reason in life they haven't had a chance to fully realize.
Thank you, Timothy. Can you both talk about how you think the pandemic is directly affecting the Bronx, communities, families, schools in the Bronx?
Hi. So yes, the pandemic has hit us very hard. We were not expecting to be going remote learning this year. We had been planning to do some of this work in the coming years, but this kind of sped up the whole process for us. Because we're a community school, it's very challenging for our community, for our school building to be closed right now, because the community was dependent on us for food, shelter, safety, and health. They look to us as a safe haven and a place where families can come and get resources and support from the school. So having the school building closed at this time, a lot of families are reaching out to us through the remote learning as well as through the phone and other forms of communication. And it's just been very, very challenging. As a school principal, I think I'm working twice as hard now as I was when I was in the school. It's hard to manage a school through the computer and through the telephone, And it's the human interaction that is hard right now. You don't have the children in front of you. You can't see them. You can talk to them, you can see them through video, but you don't have that one-on-one touch, that feel that you have when you have the children in front of you. It's been very hard. It's been very hard in the community. The great thing about my leadership style is that I'm still in contact with the community. I do whatever I can to support. I heard about some stores doing raising the prices. I got some of my people involved. I support one of the food pantries in the community by providing resources, and I send it down to the food pantry. So I'm trying to keep engaged with my community as much as possible, and I'm just so happy to be part of a school district where my superintendent, Leticia Rosario Rodriguez, supports everything I'm doing, and having an executive superintendent like Nisha Ross Porter as well, and just supporting me because I'm a very outside the box type of person, and I just love to do whatever I can for my community.
One of the things that we are witnessing is an exposure to the educational inequities that we see not only in the Bronx, not only in New York, but all around the country. And so it's requiring us to do things like Principal Torres said, that are outside of the box. But, on a side note, Principal Torres and I both believe in this next statement. We don't believe there's a box in the first place, right?
Hmm.
You have so many people that are struggling to try and think outside the box. It's easy for us to say it because it's the statement that people can most relate to. But when he and I chat, offline, and we're kind of like, prioritizing and envisioning what the Bronx Edulution is going to look like, we both believe firmly that there is no box. If you are really committed to service, and if you are really doing everything you can as it pertains to your purpose, then you are always going to be thinking of what comes next, what comes next. And the pandemic, I feel, has put people on notice in terms of how willing they are to go that extra step to make sure that families and children stay engaged. And when we talk about learning in the home, it's not something that was always at the forefront of what people were talking about previously when they knew their kids were going to go and sit inside of a school building and be inside of different classrooms for any length of time. What we have exposed is that, you have to be creative, innovative, entertaining. Um, you have to be able to prioritize what really is important in terms of the lessons and the structure of what you're trying to do with a family, because you're not only teaching the children, you're also teaching their parents. And I think if you are in the mindset of like working through the medium of online and through the medium of television in order to get your point across, or in order to train or teach people something, you have to realize there are dogs barking in the background, there are dishes clanging, there's people, clamoring for the same laptop or device, if there is a device, if you do have Wi-Fi or internet access. So I think that part of what this has done for us as a community in Mott Haven is make sure that we are always focused on not leaving anyone behind.
So my next questions are: what is the Bronx Edulution? The learning will be televised, and what are the missions and goals of the Bronx Edulution?
So the Bronx Edulution, if you look at the word in itself, right, it has two basic meanings. One is the evolution of education, or it also could be the revolution of education, whichever way you take it. Basically, it's just looking at education in a whole different way. Sadly, we had to have a pandemic to really push how education is done in our world. And like Timothy stressed earlier, the pandemic, what it's been is I've called it the quality review of the world. Um,
Yes.
yeah, basically, it's telling us, is the world prepared for the world? Are the people prepared to live in an ever changing world? And the answer is no. You have a lot of inequities that exist, and these inequities are showing up in the numbers of people who have died because of the pandemic. And we have to, as a country, as a human race, figure out how to make sure that those inequities no longer exist. Sadly, the way things are going, it looks like it's going to get a lot worse than before it gets better. But we have this opportunity now to be creative and innovative and figure out how to address the inequities of the world and how to make sure that in the future we're better prepared for things like this. So Edulution is just a way. It's not even the TV channels. It's more a shift in everything. It's a shift in the world. It's a shift in the way we think. It's a shift in the way we do things. That's what Edulution is about. It's a way of thinking, and it's a way of viewing the world in a very different way than what we were used to seeing it. Especially those educators who were used to teaching a certain way, and now they're being pushed to do it in a different manner. So when you think of Edulution, think of us evolving as human beings and as educators and as people who know about the inequities and figuring out how we're going to address those inequities in a creative, innovative manner.
Very well said. I think as we also think about, the mission, Principal Torres really touched on what it is. To summarize it, it's that, the Bronx Edulution is to provide educational programming and community engagement for children and families inside their homes. And it starts because of the pandemic, but it won't end once the pandemic is over. Because I think what we're going to find is that because of the length of this crisis, there are going to be some things that are going to now be embedded into our collective community that are going to prevent us from going back to a very standard and rigid 8 to 2:30 class the way we had traditionally been looking at it. I think there are, if I could predict something, I would say that there will be, whether it's middle school and high school or just high school and beyond, there are going to be some changes to the way education is done long term, because maybe some of the classes should remain online. Maybe you're going to find that by allowing students to utilize the devices that they want to be on all day anyway, but to use those devices in an educational for an educational purpose, you might actually get more engagement out of them, and the learning might actually increase, as opposed to when students are sitting, 25 to 30 of them in a classroom feeling disengaged and going through some other social emotional issues that may be taking place in their lives. When you're in your home, you have a different environment that you are, for the most part, might be more comfortable in. And you're learning, while there are challenges with noise and distractions and other things, your learning is really yours to own. Like, that is the truest sense of ownership of your own education. And so I think it's also teaching teachers and other educators, as well as our enrichment partners. It's teaching them a new way to communicate that is getting their story across in a more effective way, um, and a more inclusive way. Like, that's the greatest change that is coming from all of this, is the level of inclusivity that is happening globally. Because, now, before it was like all the rage, like, ooh, I went viral for something, but now there's so many things to watch online. It's not about something going viral, it's about making sure you have enough distraction to so that the amount of negativity that you're hearing and the amount of struggle and stress and trial that you're watching on television, that there's balance, right? And that takes us back to what Principal Torres was saying about the Bronx Edulution, is that there has to be a balance in the way in which we educate. There'll be, your traditional regular content, but then there'll be things that you're learning through fun ways. There'll be fun things for you to do, not just as a kid in a classroom, but also as a family unit that you can do together, where the learning is still going to continue. So, our vision is that this will be something that will be ongoing and will continue to, permeate the homes, not just in the Bronx. I told folks, we were on an info session call the other day, and I said, look, you don't know who might stumble across this. Once it's online, it could be picked up in China, it could be picked up in Australia, it could be picked up, in Scandinavia. You don't know. So, we might be exposing people to our culture in such a very unique way, that, we may never have had that opportunity before.
The original purpose that we had for this was to connect with families that didn't have access to technology. What we're finding by collecting the content and getting feedback is that it's not even about the educational connection. It's about the social emotional feelings that our children have when they see their teachers on TV, or when they see a friend on TV or someone on TV. You know, it's much greater than me and Timothy. It's much greater than anything that we could have imagined.
Yes,
And the last piece that I like to say is that BronxNet was an underutilized resource in our community.
absolutely.
It was always there, but nobody was really utilizing it. Now more than ever, we have to figure out different ways of communicating with our families. And sometimes it's not about holding a meeting in the school. Now we know we can talk to parents over the phone. We can get them through Google Classroom. We can now get them through television. We have to figure out ways of engaging our community, and it in not having access to BronxNet was a deficit for a lot of our schools, and I'm so happy that we were able to make this connection um, to BronxNet.
Thank you. Now, my next question is, what kind of programs will students and families have access to? And will students of all grades levels have programs that satisfies their current educational needs?
So basically, we're not here to replace the teachers. We're not here to replace the education that should be happening in the schools. What our goal is to provide some options for families. So if a family wants to tune into a reading lesson or a music program, they will have the option of tuning in to the BronxNet channel, Edulution channel, Bronx Edulution channel. Um, it's meant to be able to be an interactive channel, and we're going to grow to that. Right now people have to just be patient with us. We're working on programming. We're working on various issues that we want to address. We're also building content, but it's going to be a place where I want families to go and feel like it's a family video. It's a family channel where they can see their own teachers or teachers throughout the Bronx, where they can see activities and events that are happening in the Bronx and get information that they need, where they can see various people come on and just talk to them from their perspective. And it's just, again, it's a channel by the people for the people. And you're going to see different instructional practices, as well as community engagement activities, as well as sports, arts, music, career days. We want to make it everything possible for our community.
We're going to be adding in as much as we can of programming intermittently that also, reflects what we want to do with our parents and families.
So we talked to Bronx Executive Superintendent Misha Ross Porter a little about this, but we would love to know more about the call to action.
I mean, this is I'm gonna steal a phrase from Principal Torres and say this is by the people for the people, right? And we are at a time with Bronx Edulution where we are trying to include as opposed to exclude. We are trying to make equity for all really come to life in the Bronx. So, as long as folks are doing something positive for the community, then, those are the things we want to highlight. I think we have enough news stations giving you all of the negative. And I think more than ever before, this is that one time for the Bronx to rewrite its story. The negative story that people want to hold on to, which was really for such a small period of time, because there's been greatness coming out of the Bronx for decades. And there are some really amazing resources and people and opportunities here in the Bronx. We really want to hear from all of the different constituencies that make up a community, that make up a village, right? Because that's, when you are able to see more of a reflection of yourself on television, it allows you to aspire to be greater and to do greater and to dream bigger. Let's say a kid wakes up, they're eating their cereal, they're checking out the Bronx Edulution, and all of a sudden we trigger that one thing in them that lets them know how important they really are and the contribution that they have to offer to society is actually important. And so, we want to hear from everyone.
I just want to say, I just want to say that it's very important that we understand this whole idea that everyone who's involved in this project right now is a volunteer. They're not getting paid extra for this work. They're doing this on their own time to make sure that our children and families have access to information. We've had teachers who have jumped on board to support and have been doing incredible work. They have been doing work on social media. They're just transferring it over now to this initiative. But we've also had conference calls with various organizations and people. We had an amazing call with Grandmaster Caz, who's a hip hop legend, and Melissa LeBron from Windows of Hip Hop. They were doing amazing work in my school right before the pandemic started. We were about to put a music studio in our school building through Windows of Hip Hop. And also we were working on designing the school name after Windows Academy. So what we've done is we've taken relationships and partnerships that we've already been establishing, and we're now bringing it to everyone else across the borough of the Bronx. But I want people to understand how amazing it is to know that people are volunteering their time during a pandemic when we're in a financial crisis right now, and people have said, don't worry about it. We're going to come to the table. We're going to support, because it's not about the money. It's about the children. And that to me means more than anything when you talk about the Bronx Edulution project.
We have a couple more questions. My next question is, if people wanted to learn more about creating content, but we don't really have a media making experience, or know what kind of content to make, how can people get in contact with you and learn more about getting involved in producing content from home?
Yeah, so for the schools, we're going to be sending out a one-pager that we created in collaboration with BronxNet, and pretty much the one-pager is going to give all the information that someone needs to get involved. But they can also reach they can reach me through social media, or they can email me. And they can get in contact that way as well. Through social media, if they wanted to contact me through Instagram or Timothy, we have the Bronx Edulution is currently a link in Instagram, as well as my personal one, which is the Bronx Principal. And I know Timothy has also a way to connect with him in Instagram as well. But aside from that, we're creating a one-pager. We're probably going to be posting it on one of our next shows, or we'll be sending it out to people. So for now, just wait for the one-pager to come out. If you're a school, you're going to be getting the information through your superintendent or your principal or someone within your district.
And to support what Principal Torres is saying, whether it's on Instagram or on Twitter, you can use our handle at Bronx Edulution in order to get in touch with us. My handle personally is at Tribal Realness. So, reach out to us at any of those handles and ask any questions you may have. And you'll also be able to see some examples of content that we're continuing to upload on a regular basis. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get to us.
Thank you. And now for my last question, do you have any advice and tips or a special message for Bronx families and youth during this time?
So the one major thing that I would say is that more than ever before, your voice is needed in our community. If you can think it, if you can have a vision about it, one of the things that I always have believed, I grew up, my father was in the military, my mother was the pastor of a church, and one of the things my mother used to always say is that you always have everything that you need in order to succeed. It's already there. It's a matter of you identifying it and using it to the positive advantage. So we may have folks that don't have access to internet, that don't have a device to use. But if you've got a great idea for your community, write it down. You can make a voice note. Most people have a phone. You can make a voice note. You can post that to Twitter. You can post that to Instagram. You can post that on Facebook. There's places that are still readily available for you. There are tools that are readily available for you. I remember back when I first started writing music. I haven't really talked about it much, but I mean, I used to perform on Broadway. I have a song on a Grammy-nominated album. But when I started out, I was hitting spoons on the back of pans because that's the only way I could keep a beat because I don't know how to play the drums and I didn't have a music studio. I didn't have those things, but I had something in the house to help me capture the idea. So please don't allow yourself to listen to the darkness. Don't listen to the negativity. That's always going to be there because no matter what you do, there's going to be someone who's going to try and counter that. Don't sink your energy into what that is. Continue to let that constant chatter refine your product, refine your mind, make you laser focused towards what it is that you have in your heart to do. And I guarantee you, you're going to succeed. Success is defined differently by everybody. You can't tell me that I'm a success because I have to feel it. You have people that are making tens of millions of dollars that are falling into alcoholism, that are falling into drugs, that are, contemplating suicide because internally they don't feel like a success. That is a very personal thing. So what I want people to stop doing is comparing where you are to what you see as someone else's success. Define it for yourself. Live your purpose. Find it and live it. And if you don't know, all you got to do today is get up and take that first step. That's the hardest one you'll ever take. This Bronx Edulution, this last week and this past weekend, that was the hardest step, is just getting that one episode of content together so that people could see the vision. But guess what? All the rest of these steps, all day, Principal Torres and I have been on the phone with different groups and different parts of the community and different people because those next steps aren't going to be so hard. Go through the trial, go through the struggle. It is only meant to make you better. You can do it, you will succeed, but you have to define it for yourself. Live your purpose.
Yep. And I would say, we're in a very interesting time. This is the best time to be creative and innovative. People are trying to figure out, what the world is going to look like after this pandemic. And I want to just say, while you're young, get involved, become a leader, lead your community. Go
That's right.
out there. You see resources, you see things that are inequitable. Go out there and fight for those resources and get equity for your community. We can no longer focus on being victims anymore. We got to step up and now step out of that victim mentality and take ownership of our communities and become leaders. Um, Becoming a leader doesn't mean you have to run for a political office. It just means you have to, see something in life that you want to fight for, and you fight for it with all you have. Because at the end of the day, it's sad that there are still inequities that exist, and it's going to get a lot worse because with the financial crisis that we're going to be going through, things are going to get worse. But we need you to start early, right? I always tell people, I wish I would have known then what I know now. I would have started my crusade to fight inequities from when I was young. You see what's happening in your community. You see what's going on in the world. Take ownership of this world. Find your purpose. Push forward. Don't be worried about graduations or proms. There'll be a lot of opportunities for you to celebrate. And you have a lot of great people out there who care about you, and we're going to push through this, and we're going to be better than we was before. But it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take people like yourselves to grow up and become leaders. And that's what we want. We want leadership to grow out of this. From every tragedy, from every disaster, leaders grow, and we want you to be that for us.
Thank you so much, Principal Louis Torres and Timothy Coleman. It has been great talking to the both of you. We are so excited about the Bronx Edulution, and we can't wait to be a part of it. If you or anyone you know has any ideas and wants to get involved, please reach out to the Bronx Edulution team. It has been great talking to you, and I will see you next time on the next Open 2.0. Bye.